Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. I'm here. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys having a great Sunday night. I'm so saying Sunday night. Hope you're having a great Thursday night. Happy New Year's to you guys. Welcome into The Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. Welcome into The Real. Man, a lot of stuff going on in the Browns world right now. I'm a little salty still last night after the Buckeyes lost to Miami, so that's why I barely even got up on there on the screen today when the intro went off. So, no, I mean, that was a tough one to watch. I mean, shout out to Miami, great team, big physical team, dominant up front. They beat us up front all night. And, ever since Brian Hartline took that job to USF, it just seems like things just kind of unraveled. I don't know if he was the glue of the offense in terms of the staff. The preparations didn't look great against Indiana or Miami. Slow starts. It just looked kind of off all the way around. So, tough pill to swallow because that was a team I feel like that's one of those teams like 2019, 2015 where they dominated most of the year. You're like, man, that team's going to win the whole thing. And then they just completely collapse at the end. And I feel like that's one of those teams we're going to look back on and go, that's a team that probably should have won it, and they didn't. And give props to Miami. They deserved to win. They were Mario Cristobal outcoached Ryan Day last night. They were outplayed Ohio State in every area. I mean, it is what it is. So always on the next year. But and it's always next year for the Browns as well, which is why I'm here tonight. So everyone's get a like rally on the way in here and hit the like button on the way in here. Let's get the lights going up. Helps us with the algorithm, like I said, and hit the subscribe button. Because it's about to get real interesting in these Cleveland Brown streets starting, I think, this Sunday. So let's get to it. Tony Grossi put out something the other day, and it said it's second thoughts, let's just call them. Mutual parting of ways is what he's referring to. Mutual parting of Kevin Stefanski and the Browns feels imminent, he says. And I agree with this report. I've said this all along for really 2 years, year and a half. I said if the Browns and Kevin Stefanski ever were to move on from each other, which I knew was going to happen at some point. I always had a thought it was going to happen at some point, especially after 2023. Once they fired that whole offensive staff and we got to mid-season in 24 and stuff was going south, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to last much longer. And so was I surprised he brought him back? No, but I'm not surprised we're also here now either. So, again, I think it's Grossi hit this right on the money here. I think we're heading towards the mutual parting of ways. I think it's the clean way for them to move on. I don't think there's any hard feelings towards anybody between them. I don't think the Haslam's and Stefanski have beef or anything like that. I think they respect each other. I think they like Kevin Stefanski, and I'm sure Kevin likes working for them. Kevin said the other day, he's privileged to have this job, but he didn't say much more, which the way he said it, and I think what he meant by it was kind of like, the future's not probably happening for me here in Cleveland. So, but I think, I think it's the cleanest way for them to move on from each other. The Haslams don't have it on their resume that they actually fired somebody again. And I think for Kevin, I think he probably wants a fresh start somewhere else. I mean, it's been, 6 seasons now, and the furthest they've ever made it was the first round, the divisional round, or not the wild card to the division round. Division round's the furthest they ever made it. But, I think it's probably time to move on. And I think he wants a fresh start somewhere else. Will he get a job right away? I know the Giants have been rumored with him, even again this week. So maybe the Giants would take a swing at Kevin Stefanski. I'm not so uh, certain, like a lot of people, that he's gonna get a head coaching job right away. I think he'll be a coordinator next year, offensive coordinator somewhere first, and then I think he'll take a year to regroup, be an OC somewhere, maybe like at Philly or a place like that, and then come back being a head coach in 2027. I think that's what he's gonna do, personally. I could be wrong. Maybe the Giants already are thinking of calling him. Maybe there's a trade that's gonna happen Sunday night. I don't know. But I do feel that this mutual parting ways is going to happen. I think it's already in place. I think both sides knows what's going to happen. And look, man, I think if Kevin Stefanski, the biggest giveaway to me, and shout out to Dustin Fox, he brought this up a couple weeks ago on the Altitude Sports Show, and he made a helpful point. Was, as bad as the special teams has been all year for the Browns, if Kevin truly was going to stay, I think he would have fired Bubba Ventrone. I mean, if Sean McVay, who coaches the Rams, a Super Bowl caliber team this year, if he could fire his special teams coordinator 2 weeks ago, and they're on the verge of they can go win a Super Bowl this year. They're getting ready to go on a playoff hunt. Then Kevin Stefanski surely could have fired Bubba Ventrone for how poorly, and that's understanding how poorly the special teams unit has performed this year. Outside of Andre Schmidt and Corey Bojorquez, overall the special teams unit has been absolutely atrocious. And so, but he didn't fire him because Bubba Ventrone's his buddy and one of his good friends. He's the associate head coach as well. He's not going to fire his friend because Kevin knew all along. Probably, I think once the day they traded Joe Flacco, I think that was the day Kevin Stefanski said, or probably thought, this is the end. I think he was tired of this stuff going on. I mean, you know, they've never recovered since they fired Alex Van Pelt and Stump Mitchell and Bill Callahan. Well, they didn't fire Bill Callahan, but they let him out the door. They could have, stopped him from leaving, but they didn't try to stop him even. They didn't mind if he left. And I think ever since that happened, they've never been the same offensively. They've been the worst offense in the league I think statistically in the last 2 years, and if not the worst, one of the worst. And so, I think ever since that happened, they've never been the same. But I don't think that was fully on Kevin. I don't think Kevin wanted to do that. I think that was forced from the top. I think that was some people who were, the chief strategy officers at the time and people upstairs that, wanted to make this whole Watson thing work, even though they brought in a guy in Ken Dorsey to, and this is how the whole thing was flawed. How Kevin didn't want to do it was because they brought in Ken Dorsey allegedly to bring his offense, but they never let him call the plays for his offense with Deshaun Watson until Deshaun got hurt, and then Stefanski was like, "Well, the hell with it. Now you can call plays," and that was that. It's so because Kevin it came out after the season last year. It didn't seem like Kevin and Jameis really saw eye to eye. Jameis questioned Kevin Stefanski a lot. Remember that was written in articles after last season. So, he probably didn't want to work with Jameis. But I think Kevin's way of calling plays that year that was his way of still having somewhat of control because he never had full autonomy over his team. And so I have sympathy for Kevin in that way. I understand why he would want to leave and want a fresh start somewhere else. I just don't think for where the Browns are right now, what they've become, I think it's time for a move. I think it's time for them to move on from each other. I think Kevin's a really good coach in certain areas. I think I question him in terms of his overall head coaching abilities, in terms of his leadership. And what I mean by leadership, I don't mean like he can't lead a locker room. I think that showed last Sunday that guys are still bought into him and they're not, checked out on him. I think some of that too is just guys, professionals. It's what they get paid to do, and they have to put out good tape as well because they may be getting, jobs somewhere else. So I think that's part of it. But I think Kevin to me he's not a very outgoing guy. And I think Kevin, in this next stop, I think if he can be a little more of himself in terms of like what we saw last Sunday, just screaming and the yelling. I'm not saying he has to scream and yell and be a rah-rah guy, but just letting out the personality more. I feel like sometimes it seems like the team reflected him where his press conferences was just kind of dry. And maybe he's not a dry guy behind the scenes, but it just, from what we've heard from reportings from behind the scenes, when Van Pelt left, Van Pelt was the glue of that staff. And when he left, everything unraveled, we saw. So, I think Kevin's probably got some areas to grow still. He's a first-time head coach, but I think where the Browns are right now, they need to make a change. Because one thing the Browns do lack, I think, is just that strong-willed leader, like an alpha, a guy who's been there and done that before, or has been a part of Super Bowl winning organizations, knows what it takes, doesn't take shit from anybody. That's what we need in here. We need a culture setter. We need a tone setter, a program builder, because we don't have one. The Browns have been kind of like a revolving door for my whole life. A revolving door of coaches, revolving door of quarterbacks, revolving door of players. They've tried to build teams laterally, but not from never from the ground up, not from the foundation of building a culture rooted in a structure developed by somebody who knows what they're doing. They've never done that, and so I think no more revolving door, no more trying to build teams laterally. Like we tried to pay for a quarterback in Deshaun Watson. We tried to use this ultra analytics philosophy. We tried to go out and acquire an Odell Beckham and force him into our team structure. We hoped Freddie Kitchens was a guy. You know what I mean? Like we've always taken many, when he said Watson was a swing and miss, they've taken many swings and misses. And I think that a lot of that is because they've never had the full structure properly done, in line and in order the way it should be. They've never had that right structure. Even with this last regime, I think this last regime with DePodesta, Barry, and Stefanski, they were all in order in terms of, how do they word it, was like they were all mutually aligned, I guess you could say. Like they were all aligned, it was the word. They were just all aligned. But the foundation wasn't right. You can't run a football team based off of just solely analytics. They were the most they were ESPN did a poll every year for the most analytical based team in the league, and the Browns were number one by far. They had like 25 to 30 people in the analytics department. Some franchises only have like 3 or 4. And so, like the Bucks, I think only had like 5 maybe or something like that. It wasn't a lot. But let me get some of these comments here. Roll, good to see. Chris Palmer's faxed his resume over to Jimmy. What do you base this on? How will Cleveland get a high-profile head coach candidate to accept an offer from Mr. Haslam? Well, we'll have to figure that out, Buckeye Wildcat, because he has no choice. I mean, what can the Cleveland Browns do to make a coaching position look more attractive? And that's a good question right there. Now that's where I was getting to, and I appreciate the comment, Buckeye Wildcat. But like I was saying, though, they need to find the right structure finally. Now, how do they do that? Like Buckeye Wildcat was saying, what's next, right? What could they do next? And that's what's going to be on everybody's mind, I think, starting Sunday night, because again, I expect this mutual parting ways to be announced Sunday night, early Monday morning. I think that's when it'll be announced, and that's when a lot of other reporters have been mentioning as well. It seems like it's already done. It seems like that's where it's going to be heading after the game Sunday. So really, as soon as the game gets over Sunday night, all the way to Monday morning, that's probably when it's going to be announced. And I'm sure we'll hear from Haslam, as you would expect. He will break down how they're going to be going about their coaching search and who's going to be running it and all this. Now, we've already heard reports that, Andrew Berry's be the one running basically a lot of the stuff going on now. he's running the show now. We're basically in the Andrew Berry era now, which some people may say, what does that mean? He's been the GM for a while. Well, no DePodesta here anymore. Because remember, DePodesta was one that hired Stefanski and Barry. He was a chief strategy officer. It was his strategy. He's gone now. Stefanski's gone now. So really now Andrew Berry has full autonomy to do what he wants to do. And based on the report that we saw, and I read on the show the other day, that seems to be what it's going to be. It's going to be the Andrew Berry show now fully. And so what's Andrew Berry going to do? That's going to be interesting in itself. So there was this rumor today. I saw this on Twitter. I know a lot of people were talking about this from Mac. And it says he heard a rumor last night that Kevin Stefanski will only stay with the Browns if they use both first-round draft picks to trade up for Fernando Mendoza. Why there could be some truth to this, and why this likely spells like a mutual parting ways. So I'm not sure. I'm not saying this rumor's not right, but I don't think Kevin really has a choice if he stays. I think the Browns are moving off from Kevin no matter what, and I think Kevin knows it, and I think Kevin wants to even leave. That's why that's a real mutual parting of ways. trade now. Fernando Mendoza lit it up tonight in the Rose Bowl, no doubt about it. The guy looks like a slam dunk first round pick. Obviously, not even first round pick, maybe first overall pick in a lot of people's eyes. In terms of he's a quarterback, big guy, 6'5", big arm, very accurate, great leader. Seems like a great kid off the field. It seems like a guy you want to maybe plug in and build your franchise around. Mendoza lit it up tonight against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and so if this rumor is true, I don't believe Kevin Stefanski's back no matter what. I give it a less than 10% chance he's back next year. So from that standpoint, the Stefanski part of it, I don't really buy, if I'm being honest with you. But are the Browns going to try to be aggressive and try and get Mendoza? Maybe. However, I think, there's been some reports that came out recently, like Charles Robinson put out a report this week, I believe on a New York radio show. Charles Robinson, pretty plugged in reporter for a long time. And he basically kind of threw out what I've been saying all along, that really Andrew Berry is the one that likes Shedeur Sanders. And that, Kevin Stefanski is the one that liked Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco. Flacco was Stefanski's guy. That's why I said the day they traded Flacco, really to me was kind of the end for Kevin. And I think that was the day Kevin really kind of was like, all right, you know what? Maybe I should move on after the season, because that was his guy. And they, in the middle of the season, they removed Flacco from the picture so they can make him play those two rookie quarterbacks. And so, but there was clearly a divide there. And I think you can tell Andrew Bear and here, Shedeur's own people, and the guy name was Boogie, he's associated with the Sanders family, even said recently that Dion and Shedeur really gravitated towards Andrew Berry during that whole process last year in the spring. They really liked each other. I think when you see Shedeur's interaction with the people in the organization, you've seen him interact with, Andrew Berry the most. Andrew Berry came down the locker room and hugged him a couple times, and seems to be the one that likes him the most. And I think that was Andrew's pick. Andrew was also the same guy that said he believed he would outperform the selection, in the 5th round. And so that basically he was better than a 5th round pick in his eyes. And so I'm not really sure. I think if Barry likes Shedeur moving forward, Barry may do what he did last year, which is he might even stay put at 6 or 7, depending on what, if they win or not Sunday. And he may try to trade down again a couple slots and get an additional first-round pick again, and maybe try to get obviously you need linemen, you need receivers, you need a lot, but I think that's what he's going to be looking at here. I don't see Andrew Berry being that aggressive. I mean, we may find out. I mean, who knows? A lot of it's going to come down to, somebody left the comment on my show the other day. He made a great point. We need to stop a lot of these arranged marriages. And it's like whoever Andrew Berry hires, you would think is definitely aligned with him and what his plan is, because you don't want to bring a coach in who may say, well, I like Mendoza better. If we can go get him, we should go get him because I think he could run my system more. I just like that style of quarterback better. Or you got to bring a guy who says, if Andrew Berry likes Shedeur, it's got to be a guy that thinks I can win with Shedeur, I can build around him, or let's see what we have with him next year. Maybe look to 2027, right? Maybe Haslam still wants Arch Manning or something like that. But, I think that's where it's going to come down to, is that alignment. Again, I keep going back to, they have to have the right structure in place, the right foundation, because if they don't, if they keep trying to do these arranged marriages, like we heard these rumors now too, I broke down the other day about they want to keep Tommy Rees, right? And it's like, if you keep Tommy Rees, what if that coach you want to hire, or coaches you want to hire, going back to like what Buckeye Wildcat said earlier, how can we become an attractive coaching job for a high level coach? That's what we want. It's the best candidate we can get. What if they don't want Tommy Rees? Are the Browns going to say, well, then we're not going to hire you because we want Tommy? Again, we got to stop with this forcefulness stuff, because again, that's not a structure. That's not a stable foundation. And that's what the Browns have always missed. They've never done that right. They've never had a solid culture, a legit culture, because a winning culture that sustains success each year in and year out, like all the other great organizations do, because they don't have that right foundation. And so, again, whatever Andrew Berry does, he has to make sure he is aligned with his head coach fully, because if he's not, we could be heading towards another 2 years from now, another rebuild, or even a year from now, another, tear down, firing. This guy's fired. Like, what if Andrew brings in a coach who does really well, but there's still kind of some dysfunction there, and what if Andrew Venches the guy out? It's kind of funny. Like when Andrew got hired here, DePodesta was Haslam's guy. I mean, DePodesta outweighed John Dorsey that year in that offseason. Dorsey was left, fired, pushed out of town. It was DePodesta now in the year of Haslam Foley. And then at the end of the day, when it came down to it, after this whole experiment and their whole plan was getting that Deshaun Watson, this whole air raid, scheme that I've broken down, it was, they tried planning that offense for years. They wanted this air raid attack. That's why they went out and got Deshaun Watson. They felt like he was the guy to fit the system they wanted. And here we are now, 6 years later, and DePodesta is the one that's out of town, and Barry's the one that is basically taking over. And so, a lot of times you don't want to hire the guy that could replace you either or push you out of the organization in the end. And so, again, whoever he hires, he's got to be aligned with him. Because if he doesn't, we could be sitting here in another year or two with more dysfunction, replace another GM or coach or both, and we're back to square one yet again. And so, again, I'm not sure about going back to put a bow on this report, reacting to this. I think if they like Fernando Mendoza that much, then they should be ultra aggressive to go get him. If they don't, then they probably will stay where they're at, and they may even trade down a couple slots like they did last year, get that additional first-round pick again from a team, because if Shedeur, let's say, comes back next year and you don't like what you see from him and he's not the guy for you moving forward, that 2027 class looks a lot better. You want to have 2 first-round picks in that class, especially because I think that's what they were thinking ahead from last year. They were thinking this 26 class is going to be loaded with quarterbacks, and here we are, there's only one guy. I mean, Dante Moore, I still like the upside, but to me, he's not like slam dunk yet. I don't think Dante's even coming out. Like I said, people that know my background, I know some people in the football world for what I do and when I'm around. And I just think from what I've heard from people in Oregon, just leave it at that, he ain't coming out. So he told the team a couple months ago he's coming back. Could that change? Yes, it's possible nowadays. You never know. But I don't think he's coming out. And so for Mendoza's the only guy that's like the must-have. He's the only real franchise quarterback in this draft. So again, they got to make the decision there of what they want to do. If they really like him and the coach, I think if he hires a coach and that coach comes in and says, I like Mendoza more, go give me Mendoza, Barry, and Barry doesn't know what to do, Barry should listen to the coach, because at the end of the day, it's the coach's team. You want to be in line. If that coach thinks he can go get Mendoza, if you have a legit shot to go get him now, that's going to be another thing in itself, because trying to trade for a quarterback up probably the number 1 or 2 overall pick, you're going to have to give up a ton. And are they willing to do that, especially with a team that has a lot of holes still? You need offensive linemen. They have no offensive linemen under contract next year. So you still need offensive linemen. You still need receivers. You still need a safety, in my opinion. I think you need another free safety next to Delpit. You still need depth everywhere, because you always need depth in football because guys get hurt. But you really need offensive linemen. Like you're going to be drafting a ton of offensive linemen in this draft. And so, could Barry? I think Barry's going to try to work another couple trades, another Tyson Campbell type trades at certain positions like lineman and receiver, which he should. But you're still going to have to use picks on those key positions you need. And so they're going to have to really evaluate. But again, it all starts with the alignment of the coach. Now, who's going to help Andrew Barry with this coaching search? That's what I want to know, because Andrew Barry's never been part of a coaching search, ever. So, this is his first job as GM, so he was hired after Stefanski. So this guy's going to be picking a head coach. I think he's going to need some help. And I think that's why the rumors we saw the other day from Josina Anderson, I think, had merit, because A, he needs help from other former GMs who have done it before. I think he would be smart to do that. But also, B, the guy that was listed in the report, both of them, but one of them in particular, I think has a legit shot of coming here. And I did a show on this the other day, talking about Tom Telesco. And, going back to Tom Telesco now, I think this is a guy, if they want to start off that structure, right, that foundation, they should really go after Tom Telesco. Now, Tom Telesco's background, you look at some of his team's records in certain years, like his last year with the Raiders, I don't really hold against him. The Raiders are revolving doors, so, I'm not going to hold the Raiders. The Raiders are just a shit franchise to begin with, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But
He was with the Chargers for 11 years, like I pointed out the other day. He had an 84-92 record, 3 playoff appearances. He drafted Justin Herbert, some of his key draft picks. Justin Herbert, Joey Bosa, uh, Keenan Allen, Derwin James, right? And then he had the 4-13 season with the Raiders before he got fired. However, one thing about Telesco, though, a lot of his draft picks, he's hit a lot of good offensive players, especially linemen. He had Rashawn Slater. He's had a lot of pretty good offensive selections. He was with the Colts all those years with Manning and the Luck era, I believe. Maybe just the Luck era. I think it was both. If I'm not mistaken, I think he might have got the tail end of the Manning era, but still was part of the Colts with all those teams with Andrew Luck. They had some good offensive players there. And so, when you look at a guy who has had success in drafting in certain areas that we need, offensive lineman, quarterback, right? We're trying to make sure we have a quarterback, wide receiver, and he's hired head coaches before. He's been through that process many times. I think that's a guy that you could definitely lean on if you're Andrew Berry. And he also gave Andrew Berry his first job, like I pointed out the other day with the Colts back in 2009, and as a scout. And so they have a great relationship. Now, Chris Greer, who they interviewed as well, they have a great relationship too. But I don't think I think Telesco is more of a real option than Chris Greer. That's just my opinion. I think Telesco makes the most sense. If you listen to what Telesco said recently on the Kay Adams podcast, I think it was with Kay Adams, he pretty much said that's kind of the role he's going into now, is more of this, helping teams build a foundation and a culture, which everything he said on that podcast clip is what we need. And so I would like a guy like Tom Telesco. I think he would bring value to his organization and help Andrew Berry. They have a great relationship. They're aligned, right? So that's a start. That's what we need. And I think he would help Berry establish that foundation that they need. And so I would like Telesco personally. Again, I think it'd be really good. And I think part of the reason why I think they're probably going to add a guy like him, and I put the other day, is at the deep desk replacement. I'm not saying they're going to hire Telesco as like the next chief strategy officer or president of football operations. That's not what I'm saying. But I think if you bring a guy like that, I think he'll have a major influence on your organization. No doubt about it. You're not bringing a guy in like that just to sit at a table and be a yes guy to Barry. That's not why Barry's bringing him in. Now, some people have said, one reporter in particular came out and said, they don't think there's anything going on here. They were just in town visiting. Me personally, I don't think these guys right here are just coming in town with the relationships that they have with Andrew Berry and where the Browns are heading. I don't think these guys just came in town just to stop by and visit for a game. A lot of times in the business world, and I know this from what, Jersey, who's on the show, a lot of my guys work at the show, they're in the car business, and they've, have made transactions in terms of moving different dealership to dealership, right? The business world is the same, corporate America, sports. There's a lot of similarities in both, and all of them, really. In that whenever you're looking to make a move, sometimes that's usually how it starts. You go and you sit with the guy, he's your friend, and you talk about scenarios. You talk about, hey, what if? What are you thinking about now? What do you want to do now in life? And if you look at what Telesco said on that podcast, talking about with Kay Adams, the clip that went out the other day, basically referencing that he wants to go basically help a team now. He sees himself being helping, an organizational structure, stuff like that. It makes sense why the Browns would want to bring a guy like that. And I don't think this guy was spotted in Cleveland 3 weeks ago just because he would want to stop by and have a cup of coffee with Barry and watch some football. I think they're doing their due diligence, and I think he's probably as interested in it. And if what he said on that podcast is true, what he wants to do next makes the most sense for him to work with his guy Barry, I think, because you want to go work with somebody you trust a lot, I think. And I'm sure it's something they've probably talked about for years, that maybe one day they could team up together. That happens all the time. Again, going back to business, this is commonplace in business world. And so, and people out there watching us right now or in that world, you probably know what I'm talking about. This stuff happens all the time. It's not just stuff that doesn't just automatically, it doesn't just pop up one day and it just happened. No, it was orchestrated for a while, or it started somewhere and it led to this, led to that conversation, and that step, before you know it, the guy's hired. And so, he signed and penned the paper, and he's part of the Browns organization. So I think Telesco is a guy, again, I will keep an eye on. And why I think they're interested in a guy like that, and I had this report on the screen, I mean to put up there too early, but this was, like a couple months ago, even Albert Breer even hinted towards it. And it says, get get football people run this organization. And analysts urged the Browns to hire Colts legend as former team president. And it mentions Bill Polian. Now, I don't think Bill Polian's going to help the Browns. I mean, who knows? I mean, Troy Aikman went today and took a job with the Miami Dolphins, and now he's helping them out. So you never know. But Bill Polian, though, is still a close friend of the Haslam family. And I think Bill Polian, it's actually known for a while. Bill Polian has consulted with Jimmy Haslam before about, stuff with the Browns, certain decision making and stuff like that. So I don't think Bill Polian's coming out and helping getting involved and hired by the Browns, but he does consult with Haslam, right? And I think, Bill Polian was the architect, obviously. You can see there with that Colts dynasty with 2 Super Bowl wins, 7 AFC titles during his Indianapolis tenure from 98 to 2011. Well, guess who also was in that tenure at that time? Tom Telesco. Tom Telesco was a part of that. And Tom Telesco, Bill Polian, you can see right here, Bill Polian is a legendary NFL executive who heavily mentored Tom Telesco, a current NFL GM, well, now formerly with the Raiders and Chargers, shaping his career from their time together with the Indianapolis Colts and Carolina Panthers. What Telesco often called a Polian protege for his similar talent evaluation approach, Polian brought Telesco into the NFL, teaching him personnel evaluation, a system Telesco later implemented successfully with the Colts and Chargers, building successful teams around franchise quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and Philip Rivers. Now, again, go back to the main thing here. Andrew Berry, like I said earlier, it's Andrew Berry's show now, in my opinion. Stay hydrated. But yeah, man, that water's pretty cold and pretty crisp, not gonna lie. But that was refreshing. But no, I mean, we're in the Andrew Berry era now. Like I point out earlier, the report we saw last week saying that Andrew Berry now, and I'll pull that back up again here. Let me see if I can find it. That Andrew Berry is pretty much taken over now. Let me see. Right. Maybe it's my last. I'll pull up for you guys. But you guys have probably saw the report from last week. It was with Andrew. Who put that report? I think it was a prominent. Was it this one right here? No. Maybe it was this one. But you guys saw that report last week. It was a prominent NFL reporter put out. I think it was Ian Rappaport, maybe. And I want to put words in people's mouth, but I think it was him. It said Andrew Berry's going to be heavily involved in decision making for the Browns. And it basically said Andrew Berry's not going anywhere. And that it's basically his show now, fully. He has the full autonomy. No DePodesta in town anymore. Kevin's probably out of town starting Sunday night, most likely, or Monday morning. So now it's his show. So it makes the most sense for Andrew, now that he needs to find a head coach and he's fully in charge now, and now he has more responsibility, he's going to be doing things that he hasn't done before. So he's going to lean on people that, he trusts. And Tom Telesco was his guy. Tom Telesco was the guy that got Andrew Berry's first job with the Colts back in 2009. And so it makes a lot of sense why they brought him in to interview him, like Josina Anderson said. And there's that initial report right there, that they brought in Tom Telesco. And so Telesco, you kind of connect the dots a little bit. And that's why I did this show the other day where I said, I think Tom Telesco makes a lot of sense for the Browns. And there's some more to it I'm going to reemphasize here in a minute. But if you look at Tom Telesco, he's a Bill Polian protege. Bill Polian is he's a close friend of the Haslams and an advisor for the Haslams. Off to the side, he consults with the Haslams and has for a long time. So there's that. There's connection with Telesco has connection with the GM. He has connection with the owner, right? And you kind of look at what the Browns need and what Telesco said he's interested in doing now, the role he would like to take. It kind of all adds up. But there's another twist to this, though. The Browns have kind of made it clear, at least through the reporting, it seems like, and I'll pull up that report here right now. This one here from Mary Kay Cabot, it says, it talks about if Sanders continues to progress well under Stefanski and play caller Tommy Rees, it will go a long way towards continuity moving forward. If Sanders makes enough strides with this staff, including quarterbacks coach Bill Musgrave, to prove he could be the starter in 2026, the Browns will take that into strong consideration when deciding how to proceed after the season. They might not want Sanders to start over with all new coaches, although there might be a world in which they try to keep Rees as offensive coordinator, even if they try to make change at head coach. And so what she says there in that second paragraph is, yeah, we'll make a change of head. They might make a change of head coach, but that head coach is going to have to keep Tommy Rees. So how's that going to work? Because Tommy Rees is not ready to be a head coach yet in the NFL. Maybe in college, and he's getting college offers, and there's still a good chance he might go take a college job. And he's not even a part of this conversation anymore with the Browns. But let's say he doesn't get that college job, right? Let's say, he's still here under contract, and the Browns want to keep him as offensive coordinator. Now, Mary Kay Cabot did put out an article the other day. It was labeled right here. It says, "Is Tommy Rees?" Actually, it's by the Orange and Browns Talk podcast, which is theirs. Is Tommy Rees the Browns' secret head coaching candidate? I don't think Tommy Rees is ready to be a head coach yet in the NFL, just because I don't know. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but it says right here in this report. I'll put this on the full screen for you guys. I have it on my end. I'm not sure if you guys saw this the other day. Let's see it right here. Give me 1 second. So this is her latest report. And remember, we saw the report a month ago where Mary Kay Cabot said the Browns want to we'll do whatever it takes to keep Tommy Rees in the building. And Mike and I came on the show at that time and said, does that mean they would consider him being a head coach? Because I was like, and I know people that know Tommy Rees in the football world, and they say he's a dude. They say he's a legit coach. They think he's going to be a stud. He is a stud of a coach, but is he ready to be a head coach yet in the NFL, let alone college? And he's just now getting college offers this year. I feel like if they wouldn't try to go after Tommy Rees, that'd be a Freddie Kitchens type reach. And I don't think they're in a position to try to do that. Just like I'll get to the report about the McDaniels scene in a second, because you guys probably know where I'm going to go with that. But if the Browns move on from Kevin Stefanski this offseason, their coaching search might lead them to an unexpected candidate already in their building, excuse me. She says Mary Kay Cabot raised eyebrows by suggesting 33-year-old offensive coordinator Tommy Rees could emerge as a legitimate head coaching option. Quote, the way that everybody talks in the building about Tommy Rees, about how he's an offensive savant and how brilliant he is, and he's a leader of men. Cabot went on to say, I know that the Browns I know that the Browns don't want to let him out of the building, and I know that he has had opportunities. I know he will probably get more opportunities after the season. And so while Cabot prefaced her comments by saying she believes Stefanski deserves to return, the possibility of the team promoting Tommy Rees represents a fascinating pivot that could reshape the organization. Such a move would follow the template established by the Los Angeles Rams when they hired Sean McVay at the age of 30. So it could be like Sean McVay, where you found the next Sean McVay, at the age 30, like the Rams did, and they took a big swing on him and they said, he's our guy. Or it's the next Freddie Kitchens. So I don't know. I think that Tommy Rees, I don't personally believe he should be a head coach yet. That's just my opinion. I would go a different route where I could still probably keep him in the building as my OC if that's what they want to do and that's what the head coach likes. But Tommy Rees is a head coach. And, it also came out reported the other day from Ashley Bastock of Cleveland.com. Jim Schwartz, who's also in the house. Jim Schwartz said that, he would consider being a head coach again. And so now you have two coordinators in-house, right? One of them is 30-something years old, never been a head coach before at any level. He's just been in his first year. He took over midseason calling plays as an offensive coordinator in the NFL midseason. So now they want to consider him to be a head coach. And then you got another guy who has been a head coach before and is the leader of one of the best units in all of football with the Browns defense, and Jim Schwartz. I don't know. Former Browns coach Stump Mitchell, shout out to him. I'm getting him on the show here soon. He mentioned on his show the other day what he would do. Here's what Coach Stump had to say.
Worse under their tenure. The only thing that's stayed pretty good under their tenure has been Jim Schwartz and that defense. I mean, if Jim Schwartz was named the head coach, there's no question in my mind. Even if those guys were injured, it would be the same way as if when Joe Flacco came back, everybody would be up in arms and regardless of the state of their bodies, mentally, their mind would feel good because they know the type of effort that Jim Schwartz is going to give. And they know that now not only does he demand perfection from the defensive side of the ball, but he demands perfection from every phase of the ball because he is the head guy. I don't think you can bring somebody from someplace else that knows those players in that franchise like Jim Schwartz. Now it's going to be more players because those offensive linemen, a lot of those guys are not, probably won't be back. But I just think Jim's the guy for the job.
So you hear what Coach Stump said there, and he was in the building for a long time, understands who's in the building still, knows how they operate, understands them well. I trust his opinion on that in terms of what he sees from his perspective. I think it means something. So if you have to compare Jim Schwartz and Tommy Rees, I mean it's definitely a lot different. Like I said, Schwartz has been a head coach before. He has that experience. He runs the best unit and one of the best units in all football. As I think Mike Tomlin said, the Browns defense is the best unit in the AFC North. So, and Jim Schwartz, I think his unit is always the same every week. There's never they've had certain games where you can look at maybe they were bad, certain games, but not a lot. The energy and the effort's always the same every week. That Browns defense has kept them in a lot of games they probably shouldn't have been in with how bad their offense was in special teams. And so Jim Schwartz does make a compelling argument to become the head coach. Tommy Rees is interesting because I think, again, these organizations nowadays are trying to find their version of Sean McVay, like I pointed out in that article. They're trying to find the next guy. And like the article she wrote a month ago where they said they don't want to let him out under any circumstance, where they would do whatever it takes to keep him. They put him in the same breath as Kevin O'Connell, how they don't want to let somebody like that walk out the door ever again. Kyle Shanahan was here. They let him walk out of the door. He wrote a whole letter explaining why he was leaving. But, so I get it from both ways. But you have to look at what the Browns need, right? They need somebody who has done it before, I think, who can establish a culture, establish a foundation, and somebody who can really draft and develop and will help with mainly the development from your head coach, who can develop players, get the most out of them, have the same consistent energy each week and week each week, really. I don't know what to say. Each week. So, every week they're the same. Like, that's what good teams do. Like, you look at what Vrabel's done with the Patriots this year. They were a 3-14 team last year. And Drake May was a rookie quarterback who looked like a guy you could move forward with. But here comes Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff that he established, and now look at them. They could legit win the AFC this year, maybe the Super Bowl in some people's eyes. And Drake May looks like an absolute franchise quarterback and will probably a top 10 quarterback in the league this year the way he's playing. And Jim Schwartz also came here, and he Coach Stump talked about it in the show, how there was a guy named Ashton Grant who was on the staff for a long time that people knew about and said he was going to be a great coach himself. And they never really promoted him or anything, but Mike Vrabel comes here for the 1 year, and he sees Ashton Grant, what he does, takes him with him to New England. Ashton Grant's now the quarterback coach for Drake May, and look how that's turned out. And so, I get it. You don't want to let certain people out of the building again because the Browns have let a lot of great coaches who were younger at the time out of the building, and they went on to be great coaches. However, I think in this case with Tommy Rees, they would have to be really, really sure that he's the guy. Like, really sure. And how do you find that out? You have to bring another voice. You got to bring a Tom Telesco. You can't go off of they can't go off of what they've seen every day for the last year or two because they might try to be their ego get in the way. They want to try to outwit everybody, which has been the case here for a while. That's why they went the full analytics route. They're trying to be smarter than everybody else in football, the history of football. They're going to remake it, the game and everything. And look how it turned out. It blew up in their face. It was an absolute shit show, a failure. And so one of the biggest debacles we've seen, with the worst trades ever. And, so I think you don't want to go down that road because I think, again, their ego get in the way, and they may view Tommy really well in terms of a coach, and they may have also a great relationship with him. They've been around him for a while now, a couple of years. You come close to somebody, but in your personal feelings get involved. But I think they need to bring in somebody like a Telesco to really come in and just evaluate it right away. Sit down with him and talk to him, and sit down with Jim Schwartz too. I would give both of them an interview. Jim Schwartz should definitely get an interview, in my opinion. If Tommy Reese gets an interview, Jim Schwartz should definitely get an interview, no doubt about it. And so, again, though, they would have to be really sure. I think they need somebody who comes from a winning environment. I'm not saying you can definitely hire a first-time head coach, but I think you need to get somebody that comes from a winning culture, right? And so I think somebody and also they have the intangibles of being a CEO head coach who can establish a culture and be a leader. I'm not saying Tommy Reese can't do that. Do I want my first-time head coach calling plays and being a head coach? I don't prefer it. It's hard to do. I'm not saying it can't be done. Some guys have done it and they're showing success right now, but it's not something I prefer. Ultimately, I think, you'd have to be really sure about that. And I would like to have a guy who's already a quarterback established, a guy who I think is a franchise quarterback in place already there. Maybe they view Shedeur as that. I think Shedeur is still growing to become that. I think he can become that. I don't have a problem with him bringing him back at all. I just think I want to see him. He needs to be coached, though. He needs to be developed more. And that's why I think it's important who they bring and hire, because I want somebody who can develop like a son of a bitch, and also somebody who comes from a winning culture and can bring that here. Can you bring where we hired you from? Can you bring that here? And can we all align together from the top down, finally, like fully? And so Tommy Reese, to me, I don't know. Yeah. And, the thing with Sean McVay even too, Sean McVay, what do they, in that article kind of alludes to him as being like, could he be the next Sean McVay, the guy who was hired at 30 years old to be a head coach? And everybody thought at the time, what the hell are they doing? And look what it turned out to be. Now he's one of the best coaches of football for the last 10 years or almost 10 years, 8 years. But Sean McVay also is in LA. He's in LA. He's in an attractive market where that Super Bowl they got in 2020? How much money did they pay for that team? They spent a lot of money on that. They gave it a lot of draft picks and a lot of money. They kind of bought that team in a way. And they recovered fine. They recovered great, obviously, with smart trade and drafting and developing, which is the main thing you have to be able to do well. But again, the key word developing. Sean McVay showed he can develop and he can mend things together and get the best out of quarterbacks. Tommy Reese, I'm not sure if, he's not in the Cleveland market. So development for him is going to have to be really, really crucial. And so that's where ultimately it's going to come down to in their evaluation with him. But here's the thing, though, going back to Tom Telesco and why I don't think they're going to hire Tommy Reese as their head coach. Could it happen? Possibly. No doubt about it. I think it's been put out there, obviously. We said it a month ago that could it be a possibility? Maybe. Jim Schwartz, possibly. I don't think they're going to hire Jim Schwartz, though. If I had to bet my money, I don't think they're going to go with Jim Schwartz. I don't. Whether or not Jim maybe deserves that job, maybe he is the right guy for the job, like Coach Stump said, and I trust Coach Stump's opinion on that. I think he obviously was in the building. He knows a lot more about what goes on behind the scenes there than a lot of us ever will. So, fully understand what's going on, but I don't think they're going to give it to Jim Schwartz. And the reason why I said, because this report came out the other day that they're thinking about hiring, or Jeremy Fowler put out something saying about Mike McDaniels. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't think he's a real candidate for the Browns. Number one, he's still under contract for the Dolphins. But also, too, even if he was a candidate, if he was available, let's say, rather, he ain't a real candidate. He shouldn't be a real candidate. Mike McDaniels is the opposite of what the Browns need. They need somebody. That guy, his teams that barely won cold. This is a guy that was on tape literally yelling on the sideline, he's cold. And that's not a leader of men. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's just not. Yeah, maybe they've won a couple games down in Miami this year, a little more than people thought, and they may retain him and blah, blah, blah. But Mike McDaniels is not what the Cleveland Browns need. And so I think that was just a name that was thrown out there. I don't think that's legit. Maybe that's Mike McDaniels' agent linking himself to another team in case he doesn't get a job. In case he doesn't have a job, rather. So I think that's a lot of this is agent talk. Like a lot of stuff with Kevin Stefanski, you see about he can get a job here and there, or blah, 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 or, Orlowski's out there, basically, putting an ad out for him. That's all agent talk. A lot of these guys have the same agents. They funnel it through the media. They put a message out there. That's all it is. So I don't think Mike McDaniel's a legit candidate. If he was a legit candidate, Jimmy Haslam should. I hope it's not. Man, I hope it's not, because that would tell me they're trying to go for the hot boy coordinator again and trying to get this offensive guru mind that they've been trying to find to be their head coach. But again, you got to hire somebody that aligns with your structure, A. And B, you need to hire somebody to be a head coach. Head coach, not offensive coordinator. Head coach. We're not hiring a guy for his offense. We're hiring him to be a head coach. Okay? I want to make that clear right now, because it's like we see this all the time. We would bring up all these names and they're just like these, they got this defense and they got this offense, but it's like, how could they be as a head coach? As a head coach, you're involved of 3 different phases of football: special teams, offense, and defense. You're in charge of your whole coaching staff and the 53 men on that roster. There's a lot that goes into it. You're a CEO. And so I don't want to hire a guy because he might fix my offense. Well, what about you gotta let your defense suffer too? You let the culture of your team don't matter? You ain't gonna win shit with a bad culture. We've seen that here in Cleveland. You may have a hot season, but it won't last because you don't have a sustained foundation. You don't have a built foundation to help it sustain and last. That's what we've ultimately missed for the longest. Since I've been alive, that's what we've never had. So that's what you need to find. And so again, going back to Tom Telesco, and I'll finish with this with Tom Telesco and the whole show today, why I think I would bring Tom Telesco in, because A, he has a relationship with Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry's not going anywhere. I probably should emphasize that again, but whether I agree with that or not, they're not firing Andrew Berry. There's no indication he's getting fired. So he's going to be here. He'll be in charge. It's his show now, right? So, but he needs help. He's never done a coaching search. I think he's got more responsibility now with DePodesta gone, and he's going to have to take on his plate. Again, I've already laid it out today. I like the Telesco, bringing him in. Telesco even said recently, like I keep reemphasizing, that that's kind of the role he's looking for now, that structure guy, the guy that helps with the structure and everything, helps organizations out with stuff like that. And so him and Barry obviously have a great relationship. He gave Barry his first job. So it makes a lot of sense, right? I like Tom Telesco. But if they want to keep Tommy Rees in the building and Andrew Berry brings in Tom Telesco, who's going to be your head coach? Right? And I brought this name up the other day. The guy who's probably the hottest name right now is, I can get his name up here again. Where is he? He's somewhere on my sheet. I got a picture of the guy. Oh, here he is right here. Chris Shula. Tom Telesco and Chris Shula have a strong connection through football, primarily via John Carroll University right here in Cleveland, where Telesco played and Shula's legendary grandfather, Don Shula, attended. Telesco later hired Shula as a scout for the Colts, linking them professionally with Shula, now serving as defensive coordinator for the LA Rams. So Telesco not only hired Barry as a scout, but he hired Shula as a scout for the Colts too around the same time. And then get this, Tom Telesco, Chris Shula, and Tommy Rees were all together in San Diego when they were in the San Diego still, the Chargers, back in 2016. So Telesco, Barry, Shula, Rees, they're all connected, right? They're all connected. And so, again, the Tom Telesco thing to me makes a lot of sense. And I don't think that was a bogus report from Josina Anderson. I know some people question some of her reports. I think that one was that report to me. I'm not talking about her report or anything. I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting my opinion about her. I'm just saying I think the report she put out to me was legit. And I think it makes a lot of sense, like I pointed out today. But Tom Telesco, his relationship with Bill Polian, who is a close advisor with Haslam, a good friend of Haslam, has advised Haslam for years. His relationship with Andrew Berry, his relationship even with Tommy Rees, and he knows Tommy Rees. I'm not sure what their relationship is, but they know each other. Tommy Rees worked for the Chargers under Telesco's, his team, and then him and Chris Shula obviously have a strong connection through John Carroll right here in Cleveland, so they have Cleveland ties too. And so, I think this all makes sense to me. I think Chris Shula, he's the guy that, Sean McVay has never, it was written recently, Sean McVay, I think Jay Glazer said this, Sean McVay hasn't worked with any other coordinators closely to prepare them for becoming a head coach than Chris Shula. And you go back to that report we saw, how they said they were trying to put Tommy Rees in the same breath as, Sean McVay, but why not get the guy that Sean McVay has helped himself, right? And if Sean McVay has worked with this guy longer than anybody, prepare him more than anybody to become a head coach, and you hear how people feel about him coming out and being a potential head coach, a lot of people feel very strong that he'll be a great head coach. To me, that makes the most sense. And he's coming from a winning culture. Like, I would say, Chris, we're hiring you because we believe in your qualifications. We think you're the guy for the job. But also, Chris, you come from the LA Rams. Can you please bring what they do there here? You have a relationship with Telesco. If we hire him, Andrew Berry. You guys are all aligned. Can you just make it happen? Bring that fucking shit from, I'm sorry to cut, but bring that stuff from the Rams and please bring it here. Please. Because my gosh, we are tired of watching this bullshit every Sunday here in Cleveland. Can you please just bring that Rams culture here? That's what we need. And I think I've done a lot of background search on Chris Shula. I think Chris Shula is going to be a really good coach. I think he'll be a really good head coach. I think he'll be a CEO. I think he'll have a strong culture where he goes. Kind of like the guy that went to the Seahawks, McDonald, I think his name was, McDonald or whatever his name is, that they hired. I can't remember his name right now. It's blanking on me. Let me type it. If you know, put it in the comments real quick. But that guy, look what he's done in a year. He came from a strong cultures, right, with Harbaughs, both the Harbaugh guys, Mike McDonald. Yeah, that's what we need, a guy like that. Come in and establish a culture, be a CEO, leader of men, right, comes from a winning culture and brings that here. That's what we need. And so I think Tom Telesco makes a lot of sense for Andrew Berry for what he's about to do and more responsibility he's about to take over and what the search he's going to have to conduct here. And he also helps with scouting, especially offensively, I think, in some of the key spots that we need, like receiver, low lineman, and even quarterback if need be. But also, Chris Shula makes a lot of sense, too, because they're all aligned. And I think Chris Shula and Tommy Rees have worked together in the past. If Tommy doesn't leave, then, I think there's a good shot. Maybe Chris Shula want to keep Tommy as his OC because they know each other. There's continuity there. It all makes sense at all lines. However, let's say Tommy Rees does leave, right? I got to give a shout out to somebody who left a comment on my video the other day. Gentleman's name was Simon Rutledge. And they put out a great name. And a shout out to you, Simon. Thanks for the feedback, brother. A shout out to Garrett Metcalf as well for his feedback. But he put out a name as well, a Rams assistant coach that has his attention. And it's the Rams quarterback coach. His name is Nate Shieldhaas, I believe his name is. He's the quarterback coach for the Rams. And a lot of people, he's been rumored as well to probably get a promotion as an OC. And a lot of people they feel very highly about him. He also was at Iowa State for a while with their head coach who just took the job, Matt Campbell from, I think, from the Northeast Ohio area. So even if Tommy Rees does leave, I mean, that Rams tree right now is really strong. I mean, the assistant staff, I want to say the tree, but the staff that they have in place right now has a lot of potential home run coaches because Sean McVay just has done a hell of a job there. But you bring in the top guy, this guy, right? I think Shula has the edge. If I had to pick somebody from their staff, either him or LaFleur, I would go with Shula. I think LaFleur has a shot to be good too, but I like Shula the best. I think to be the best head coach out of the bunch, right? But let's say even if Tommy Rees leaves, well, maybe give that quarterback coach Nate Shieldhaas. Why not give him a shot at OC, right? And bring some of that Rams culture here. That's what they need. They need somebody who has done it, who comes from a place where it's been done before. And he was there when they won the Super Bowl, Shula. Bring them here and just let them do their magic. Can you please bring that culture here? Because that's what we need. And they've developed great out there. I mean, that's what we need, a culture of just winning, excellence, and development. And then the Browns will finally get where they've been trying to get to. So, Telesco, Barry, Shula, Rees. Those are names I think you'll be all seeing connected possibly. I think Shula's the guy right now, though, I think is the name. Now, if they try to go the offensive coordinator route and try to get an OC guy, I'll be honest with you guys, I think they might pull that trigger on Tommy Rees and make that, it'll be a hell of a leap that a lot of people probably wouldn't be happy about. I think it's it can go really good and be Sean McVay, or it can go really bad and be the next Freddie Kitchens 2.0. So that's why Andrew Berry needs to bring in a Tom Telesco to help him establish that culture and stability and foundation. First and foremost, above everything. You start with that first. Let those guys, Jimmy, make the decisions. All right. And maybe get input from Polian and maybe Nick Saban, all your guys. And then put it all together and make the right hires that everybody feels comfortable with and are all aligned. And it also fits what you need, which is a culture, a structure, and a foundation first. Because you need to establish that first, because that's how you sustain success. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But again, going back to the main report today, though, the wrap up here. Where is it? A mutual parting of ways is imminent. And I expect it to happen Sunday after the game. As soon as the game ends Sunday to Monday morning, you're probably going to get the alert somewhere in that time span. Maybe when we're live on the show Sunday night. I don't know. But it is imminent. It's going to happen. I'd say less than 10% chance he's ever brought back under any circumstance. So I think both sides want to move on. No hard feelings. It just is what it is. So, but yeah, so stay tuned for that and subscribe, because we'll be live Sunday night if it happens Sunday. And Sunday night show is going to be awesome, I think, because it's going to be awesome in terms of just entertainment, the end of the season, what's next. I'll be myself and all my panels will be up here. You don't want to miss it. You guys have seen the shows before on Sunday nights. You already know what it is. This one's going to be, I think this one will be one of our more entertaining ones and more of our electric shows. So definitely hit the subscribe button and like. Wrap up these 2 comments here from Buckeye Wildcat. Thank you again, Buckeye Wildcat. Great stuff. I'll throw this at you, and it's a reach. If John Gruden could settle his federal lawsuit with the NFL this month, could you see him coming to Cleveland? Coach Gruden is a culture setter. I mean, John Gruden's interesting. I'll be honest with you, Buckeye Wildcat. I don't see it happening. I'm just not convinced John Gruden's going to be a head coach again, honestly. I think right now, he's on the barstool side of things. He seems to be enjoying doing that. I'm not sure if he ever wants to come back to the NFL again. I could see John Gruden being a college coach somewhere one day. Definitely at college. I'm not sure if he'll be in the NFL again, though, one day. And I just don't think Haslam would, especially if Barry's in charge. Barry's not going to reach for a guy like that, I don't think. I don't know if they have any connections. I think John Gruden's just such a strong-willed guy, almost too strong-willed, that I think he would have to bring John Gruden with somebody that he knows and he likes. Like they tried with the Raiders, what they did with Mike Mayock. So I don't see that happening. But, I mean, I get what you're going in terms of alpha, culture setter. I think that's definitely what we need. I just don't think it's going to be Gruden that they'll try to hire. Get rid of analytics and actually scout players by watching film and attending games. Coach by the feel for the game within that moment. Throw out analytics entirely. Yeah, I mean, analytics are a tool. You use analytics. They're good information. I think a smart organization is using analytics. All organizations use it now. And analytics is just another term for stats. I mean, teams have been using these stats for a long time. Some of them have gotten more advanced, and some of them are kind of weird now. But I think some of them are overplayed and don't really mean anything. But I think you use analytics as a tool, but it shouldn't be your foundation, your organization fully, like it has been for us for the last 5 years. So I think you're right. They need to bring more football people, which I think they're doing now. I don't know. Whatever they did this last draft, I think it seemed to be more of an Andrew Berry draft fully. And they hit a home run there. So I think that's why Berry really saved his job, because he nailed that draft. But, they hit multiple picks there. So I think whatever they did there and build off of that and improve from that, that's where they probably should keep going towards, football minds. But also you got to have people, not just people that scout talent well, but you got to have people that can identify what you need as a team. How can you, we need offensive line. We need to build from the inside out. We need offensive linemen. We need receivers. We need a quarterback to be solidified. I think they'll bring back Shador. I think Shador can be the guy, but you need offensive linemen. And so, like Stump even said, on his show, they nailed some picks with these guys, but they kind of drafted guys they didn't really need. They needed other positions first. And so I think that's what they need. They need somebody that knows how to build not only a culture, but somebody that can build a team, the structure of a team properly. And I think that's where Telesco may come in to help out Andrew Berry with that. And then you need a coach that can develop them and get the most out of them and set a culture and a standard. And then you put all that together. Now you got something brewing. And so But you got to find that healthy balance, and we have been completely unbalanced. Buckeye Wildcat for a long time. We've been way too analytical. The most analytical team, probably the Browns may have been the most analytical franchise in all sports for the last 5 years. Honestly, I mean, they had the leader of Moneyball in the building running the show, basically, the shadow president in a way. So, like Michael Lombardi put the one time in his article last year. But now that he's gone, now you can get more of that balance in there. And now I think you can get back to, like the things I point out, finding those things you need in terms of A, putting the right structure in, and then B, having a coach in there develop and set a culture to standard. So appreciate you, Buckeye Wildcat, Road, everybody else that tuned in tonight. Please like, subscribe, share all that good stuff. We will see you guys Sunday night. Stay tuned because it's going to start to get, we're just getting started here with this season, honestly. I mean, we got through the full season of play, but now we're getting to the real part of the season we've all been kind of waiting for. We knew was coming. And nothing personal, Kevin's fan. I think Kevin's a nice guy. I think he's a good family man. I wish him the best, you know what I mean? And wherever he goes in his next stop, I think he has a chance to be really good. And, you know, but it's time to move on and make change. Change is good sometimes. Some of the best advice I ever got in my life was from somebody one time. It's my old neighbor named Scott. Shout out to Scott. And we were sitting out back one night before I was getting ready to move, and I didn't really want to move at the time. And Scott was like, you know, Joe, change is good. You know what? Looking back now, Scott was right. The man had a lot of wisdom. So shout out to Scott. But change is good, you know. So, but I expect change Sunday night in the early Monday morning. So you better like, subscribe, and share. Tune in Sunday night because we will be reacting to all of it live right here on The Reel. So love all you guys. See you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. God.